Undoubtedly, one of the strongest things working for the Nintendo Switch right now is its steady flow of strong indie titles on the eShop. While some of the games are new to the market, others are re-releasing after being out for years. While some may groan at this, I find it an exciting new way to discover amazing games that I may have missed in years past. Xeodrifter is one of those games. To some, it may be a game that released back in 2014, but to me, this is a brand new game and a brand new experience. Xeodrifter is a Metroidvania style game created by development studio Renegade Kid and ported to the Switch by Atui. Originally released for the 3DS before making its way to many other consoles, the game has finally come to the Switch. And as far as I can tell, this release is a straight port of the game with no new additions. The game begins with our hero astronaut flying through space, only to have his ship damaged by an asteroid. It's up to the player to help find a new warp core to get the poor astronaut back on his way. Xeodrifter begins with the player having the option to travel to 4 different planets. Each planet represents a different level that can be accessed in any order via the spaceship. I realized pretty quickly that most planets aren't very explorable at first without upgraded moves and abilities. As the player begins to explore these planets, markers on the map give a clear objective where you must make your way to. The astronaut starts his adventure with only 3 health and a weak, not very impressive blaster. However, not long after fighting a boss or two, the game starts to award the player with both health and weapon upgrades hidden throughout the game. As with most Metroidvanias, defeating each boss equips the astronaut with abilities, making out-of-reach areas accessible. Xeodrifter contains a very fun and deep weapon customization menu, allowing the player to create their own unique weapon loadout. There are 5 different options including projectile speed, strength, fire rate, spread, and curve. These include both fun and utilitarian choices, and the game does encourage trying multiple loadouts for different game scenarios. This mechanic is super cool and really made me addicted to finding every single upgrade I could possibly find. Speaking of finding upgrades, this game has tons of different hidden paths and explorable secrets throughout. Some lead to health and weapon upgrades, others even lead to fun Easter eggs. Even though it feels like many of these are found purely out of luck, it makes stumbling across them even more rewarding. Adding another health extension or making your weapon stronger just feels so good. The levels themselves are for the most part very enjoyable to traverse, with certain parts full of platforms to scale, as well as multiple underwater shootouts. Each planet has new and more challenging enemies to face off against, all brilliantly designed. Partway through the game, the player is awarded after a boss fight with the ability to plane shift. This allows the player to swap between the foreground and background of the levels in specific parts of the game. It's not as heavy as Mutant Mudds, but it's still a great feature that really adds to the overall travel and exploration of the game. The bosses in Xeodrifter are an interesting and somewhat divided subject amongst fans. They are these big alien bug dinosaur looking things, and each boss is a different color than the ones before them. As you go along, they increase in difficulty and incorporate new attack patterns as the player becomes stronger and learns new moves. I personally didn't have any issue with the lack of diversity in the bosses. Each boss continued to be more and more of a challenge, and the more I faced them, the more I began to learn their moves and attack patterns. This allowed me to have somewhat of an upper hand, because regardless of all that, these bosses are no joke. I died many times, especially towards the beginning. Luckily, the developers were smart and generous enough to add checkpoints before and after each boss. This was such a welcome design choice and made this game so much more enjoyable to play. It's also worth noting that the HD rumble of the Switch felt super in tune with this game. I'm not sure if any specific work was done to make the vibrations unique to this version, but it really felt that it was intentionally integrated into the game. Now, some people might say this game is a bit short. While I can somewhat agree with that complaint, I think the game is perfect in length. I find that most Metroidvanias outstay their welcome, and overall that hurts their game. I spent a handful of hours playing through Xeodrifter, and I did my very best to find every collectible. finishing the game with a 94% completion, only missing 2 health and 1 weapon upgrade. I feel that the length of the game is perfect, and it fits the $10 price tag as well. The visuals of the game are on point in everything you'd expect from the high standard of quality from designer Jules Watson. Brilliantly crafted pixel art makes this appear like an NES game on steroids. Tons of detail are added to the environments, and the character designs and animations are well executed. Things like sprite particles from explosions are a nice touch that show how much care and detail went into this game. The music in Xeodrifter is also top-notch, adding an extra layer of sci-fi goodness on top. The chiptunes are fast-paced and exciting, reminiscent of action games from the 8-bit era. The songs never felt repetitive, short, or reused. When I first started up this game, I had no idea what to expect. I was a huge fan of Mutant Mudds, but hadn't really seen or heard much of anything about Xeodrifter. When I was finished with the game, I left feeling very happy. I enjoyed it from start to finish, and it was a challenging adventure. If you typically avoid Metroidvanias, or you don't normally enjoy them, I highly recommend that you give this one a chance. With strong mechanics and fun customization and upgrades, it was hard to put the game down. The brilliant visuals and music made for an all-around enjoyable and endearing sci-fi adventure. I love the world that was created and explored in this game, and I am hopeful for a sequel in the future. I give this game 4 out of 5 stars.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, check out some of our other videos, and visit thenintendovillage.com, your home for everything Nintendo.